Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko. We'll get to that murder trial in just a moment. But first, developing tonight, the Rose City is preparing for more than 600 workers to go on strike. And as soon as next week. Alma McCarty's in the newsroom tonight following this for us. Alma.
Well, David, Portland city laborers are getting the word out about a planned strike starting next week as they still have not reached a new contract deal with the city. Maybe you noticed this sign hanging from the Blumenauer Bridge over I-84 reading, "Strike in 8 days." Ahead of that strike, the union's holding a rally in front of City Hall on Saturday. Laborers Local 483 explained they view this contract as an opportunity for the city to honor the sacrifices of workers who have shown up through recent years of crisis. We were unable to speak directly to a union representative this evening, but they did tell the Oregonian they've reached an impasse in contract negotiations, mainly over a cap on cost of living raises. The 615 employees represented by PCL span multiple bureaus working in wastewater treatment, operations, pollution testing, street management, and park ranger services. City officials issued a statement today explaining they've been negotiating a new contract for nearly 10 months. The city acknowledged the workers have a legal right to strike and said planning efforts are underway to keep city services running should a strike occur. The union's bargaining unit provided the city with notice of the intent to strike. Again, the strike is set to begin Thursday, February 2nd at midnight, if an agreement cannot be reached by that time. David?
You got to hope there's a backup plan for things like the sewer system. Thank you, Alma. Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now. Several hundred people gathered in Monterey Park, California this evening where they prayed and remembered the victims of a mass shooting at a ballroom dance studio there Saturday night. 11 people were killed and 9 others hurt. The 72-year-old manager of that ballroom was among those victims. The shooter, who later killed himself, was also a regular. In Yakima, Washington, police say the man accused of shooting and killing 3 people at a convenience store this morning is now dead. Officers spent hours searching for the suspect. Police tracked him down after they say he made a call to his mother admitting to the killing. They say he shot himself as officers were approaching. It is still unclear if the initial shooting was targeted or random. And the former mayor of Beaverton has been sentenced to 6 months in prison for possessing child pornography. Denny Doyle pleaded guilty to 1 count in federal court last fall. Investigators say Doyle loaded images containing child pornography onto a USB drive between November 2014 and December 2015. That was during the time he was mayor. The sentence also includes 5 years supervised release and $22,000 in restitution to the victims. All right, let's get to that stunning testimony in Clark County today on the first day of Warren Forrest's murder trial. He is the convicted killer, already serving a life sentence for murdering another young woman. Catherine Cook joins us now. Catherine, we should warn our viewers here that the details here are incredibly disturbing.
David, I found parts of today's testimony very difficult to listen to. Prosecutors hoped it would be a powerful example of how Forrest operated, one of many deadly plans they believe he laid out and followed.
Convicted killer Warren Forrest has been in prison since 1978, serving a life sentence for the murder of 20-year-old Krista Blake. But investigators have always suspected Forrest in other murders and attacks. He's now on trial for the murder of 17-year-old Martha Morrison of Portland, who was killed in 1974. The case finally in court thanks to DNA evidence found in 2015.
My name is Norma Jean Lewis.
Norma Lewis, another alleged victim who survived, took the stand on the first day of testimony. In 1974, Lewis, then Norma Countryman, was 15. One summer day in Ridgefield, she met Forrest, who offered her a ride home. She says he then drove her into the woods of Tooks Mountain.
And at that point, he put a knife to my throat and kind of tugged and said, "Let's get in the back of the van."
Bound and gagged, Lewis says Forrest sexually assaulted her. She says he tied her ankles and feet, then bound them all together before tying her down between 2 trees.
He struck me in the eye. He hit me very hard. And he said, "I'm going to wait out there, and you don't know how long I'm going to wait. But if I hear any fussing, that's mild compared to what you will get."
Lewis says Forrest left as she lay sobbing, the rope around her face causing extreme pain.
was intolerable. And so I started chewing or sawing through the throat. It was a twine-like consistency with my front teeth. And then after a while, the throat broke and my head moved free. And I knew I had to get out of there, so I struggled until I could get up on my knees. It took a lot, but I managed to get upright so that I'm standing up. My wrists are bound behind my back, my ankles are still bound.
Lewis then hopped and hopped all night through thick brush and even under barbed wire fences. She was lost, exhausted, and terrified. At dawn, Lewis happened upon the Tooks Mountain maintenance station. A worker drove up and found her.
He got my ankles straight and he helped me up and he helped me into the office and he sat me down in the chair. And he took his coat off and he put it over my shoulders.
Lewis led police back to the place she escaped from, the place where just 200 feet away, investigators would find Krista Blake's body buried in a shallow grave.
Now, this trial is expected to last up to 3 weeks and will pick back up tomorrow. Forrest is facing a first-degree murder charge in Morrison's death and again is already serving a life sentence for the murder of Krista Blake. David.
Incredibly powerful and difficult testimony there. Thank you, Catherine. After a second year of record homicides, we have an update tonight on Portland's strategy to combat gun violence. You might remember last September, the mayor greenlit a plan to move forward with a somewhat controversial gunshot detection technology, one that is called ShotSpotter. Well, now city leaders are taking a step back, multiple steps back, in fact, and asking competing companies to bid on how they would manage gunshot detection in the city. They're also giving the public a chance to ask questions. You might remember ShotSpotter uses sensors to essentially capture the sounds of suspected gunshots before sending alerts along with locations to police.
We want them to be very concise and clear about what they're proposing and how their technology works, but also addressing concerns that we have heard all along.
Now, public record show leaders have received concerns about ShotSpotter's effectiveness. Our investigative team, for example, found the company promises a 97% accuracy rate, but that statistic is based on internal data that is not available to the public. And an analysis of ShotSpotter alerts in some cities where it's active found the alerts rarely lead to arrests or even evidence of a gun-related crime. Mayor Wheeler's office declined to explain why the city decided to open the process up for new bids. Well, yet another big shakeover, really two of them tonight inside the Portland Thorns organization. The team has now fired its athletic trainer and one of its assistant coaches after a pair of league investigations. Mike Benner has the latest.
Just 3 months after netting this goal in the National Women's Soccer League semifinal game, Portland Thorns midfielder Crystal Dunn's husband and Thorns athletic trainer Pierre Soubrier is out of a job, terminated by the soccer club. Investigators looking into allegations of misconduct found that Soubrier gave at least 2 players medication containing the controlled substance codeine. He did so multiple times and without a prescription and physician supervision, which is a violation of federal and state laws, not to mention league policy. But it doesn't end there. Also out of a job is Thorns assistant coach Sophie Clough for making unwanted advances on a player. Investigators found that Clough kissed a player's neck at the team's championship celebration in Washington, D.C. These terminations would be concerning if they were isolated incidents, but sadly, they are not. Late last year, Thorns head coach Ryan Wilkinson resigned in the wake of a relationship with Thorns player Emily Menges. Meg Linehan, senior writer for The Athletic, shared this with me at the time.
The two of them did tell me we hung out one-on-one in 3 settings. They said, as friends. And then by mid-October, both said, there was this expression of feelings via text messages.
Those messages and emails showed the relationship between Wilkinson and Menges never turned physical, so Wilkinson was cleared of violating any sort of policies. But it was evident she could not keep her job, and she resigned. It came only 1 day after Thorns owner Merritt Paulson announced he was selling the club. This was due in large part to a months-long investigation that revealed a toxic culture of sexual, emotional, and verbal abuse within the Thorns organization. The coach at that time, Paul Riley, was to blame for a lot of it. But the investigation also showed patterns of misconduct by Paulson and front office staffers Gavin Wilkinson and Mike Golub, who were both relieved of their duties. Fast forward several months, and 2 more Thorn staffers are now unemployed. Assistant coach Sophie Clough and athletic trainer Pierre Soubrier. The Portland Thorns did release a statement saying they remain committed to following all NWSL policies, and that explains why they fully cooperated with the league's investigation into the trainer and assistant coach. The statement goes on to say the health and safety of the players is the club's utmost priority. Reporting from outside Providence Park, I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
Well, you are watching